Coming up next on Tech News Today, Snapchat actually doesn't have anyone that works there that tells them they're being racist with their filters. Interesting. Also, FCC loses its battle to promote competition in municipal broadband. We have new details about an upcoming MacBook Pro, how to be an amateur astronomer, and cat people are sinister. It's true because Facebook says it is. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1574, recorded Wednesday, August 10th, 2016.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century with a fast, easy, and completely online process. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/TNT.
And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT.
Welcome to Tech News Today. This is a show where we talk about everything that's happening in the world of technology that you need to know. All of it. Every last bit of it. I am Megan Morrone.
I'm Jason Howell. I think we sometimes skip some stories, but we talk about most of them. I think today is no exception to that rule.
I don't think it's an exception.
Okay.
All right. Should we start?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it is time for the Twippersif.
That works.
This week in possibly racist Snapchat filters. Today, Snapchat removed a filter that users on Twitter were calling yellow face. It looked a lot like an Asian stereotype. Snapchat told The Verge that the filter was inspired by anime and meant to be playful, but many users were not amused by this. If you're still wondering whether this is racist or not, you can check out the piece in Wired that goes through a good history of the offensive use of yellow face. Snapchat says it expired and it will not go back into rotation.
They've expired it.
Immediately. And it won't go back into rotation. But I don't know. It does not appear to be inspired by anime. No. When I think of anime,
I actually think an anime, like a truly inspired by anime Snapchat filter would be super cool, right? When I think of anime, I mean, the one main thing I really think of are the really big eyes. I don't necessarily think of the eyes that they have put in there, which kind of painted in a completely different picture. And seriously, there is no one on staff that works there whose job it is at this point, because obviously they need this person, who their one and only job is to look at something and go, that's appropriate or that is inappropriate. They can be the inappropriatizer. I don't know what the job title is for that, but they need someone to do that. And I'm sure there are plenty of people on Twitter who would be willing to work at Snapchat for a fee to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there were lots of people tweeting today that they would do that. Or, not just the inappropriate and the racist, but, we've had the stolen ones,
right.
the ones that were plagiarized, so it's just like, what are they thinking? Who's in this room with these people? And this is something they're advertising on, too. So I just think they're in dangerous area here, and I want them to do better.
I mean, maybe it's one of those things where they feel the pressure to always be putting out, to come up with new ideas for these filters, and they've got a bucket of them, and they just don't think when they pull from that bucket. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. And the challenge here is that everybody has a different level of acceptance or let's say interpretation of these things. Some people might not find it inappropriate. Other people do. But there's a real kind of tone-deaf quality to how Snapchat is evaluating these things before they go public with it. And because it's a social network, especially because they're a huge company and there are a lot of eyeballs on it and there are a lot of people using these things, they need to respect the fact that there are certain things that they can put in there that will really turn people off, and that will, get them in the news for better or for worse for things like this. Whether it's an overreaction or not, people are interpreting it in that way, and you have to respect that. As a company, you have to respect that.
Absolutely. I think this is a sign of a very young company.
Yes.
I used to work at Microsoft, and it was they were not a young company. Everything I wrote, every image that we had to go through like just so many levels, legal levels and global appropriateness. And, how is this going to read in different areas? And, they have none of that. Snapchat has none of that. So, it's great to be a young company that's more flexible than a place like Microsoft. But there are downsides to that, too. I mean, you talk about Facebook. Every time Facebook changes anything, like they have to go through so much of a huge process, a design process, because they know how many eyeballs are on every button, everything. And it seems like Snapchat doesn't understand that yet.
I think they're getting there. I hope. I don't know. I feel like we said this last time.
Yeah.
Like you wonder if they're learning that lesson at this point. But I guess the flip side to this is it keeps happening. It's not doing. Nothing's happening to their user base. Their numbers aren't dropping. Significantly. So I don't know. Any press is good press. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. State laws in some U.S. states place restrictions on the potential growth for municipal broadband networks. And the FCC had voted to block those kind of laws, at least in 2 states, North Carolina and Tennessee, in an effort to remove barriers that would promote competition in the telecom industry. But in reality, the FCC has no inherent authority to overturn state laws. And as such, both states took to the appeals court to push back on the FCC's efforts. Well, today, the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled unanimously with the states, which basically means that the states can continue to place restrictions on the boundaries and efforts of municipal broadband going forward. Basically, the laws protect ISPs, so private ISPs in certain areas, from the kind of influence or the market pressure of municipal broadband competition. It's essentially what the FCC was trying to do here, was trying to change it so that, because competition is good, right? That can drive down price, that can drive up features, all this kind of stuff. They really wanted to be able to get to a point to where, particularly in rural areas, they could extend the municipal broadband that they're offering in a big city out to areas that are near the city, where they might have high-priced, low-performing broadband, as is the case in many rural areas. And this kind of puts the kibosh on that.
So does this mean that there's going to be less competition? I had a hard time getting my mind around this. So the FCC thinks competition is good, but then they were overruled in this. So there's going to be less competition.
Well, I mean, when you think, take the rural example, right? Someone out in the middle of an area 2 hours outside of some big city that has this really competitive, nice, high bandwidth municipal Wi-Fi or municipal broadband offering. Their only option might be some satellite broadband option that beams them super slow, high latency, connectivity out in the middle of nowhere. If this had gone through, basically what that could have allowed for is for that excellent kind of city-run municipal broadband to extend out into other areas. But what the states are arguing is that actually, essentially that creates more competition, right? That puts the state or the municipal offering against other private firms. The private firm that happens to be offering, broadband that's not very good out in the rural area, but that's the offering. A private company is doing that. This prevents that better option, potentially that better option, from extending to there. So yeah, it limits choice for people, basically.
And so the states were also saying, like, they didn't want the FCC to make this decision for them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They didn't want to be put into a position where the FCC is making a decision. And maybe that's the kind of the, one of the positives of this is that if the FCC didn't actually have that ability, this kind of, sets that precedent that, at least in this case, that they still don't. But it's just, it's kind of a bummer. Tom Wheeler, who is the FCC chairman, said that it was the proudest day of his public policy life when on the same day the net neutrality rules that they were working on, along with the municipal broadband rules that they were working on, were enacted in the same day, like a year and a half ago. So this kind of doesn't make that the proudest day anymore, I guess. That removes one of those cool things from there.
He still has that day.
He has that day,
we
I suppose.
We always have net neutrality. That's what he's saying.
Right.
Like Paris.
Yes.
Earlier this week, critics claimed that Apple was beyond overdue for a laptop upgrade. And today, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reports that those critics might have to wait a little bit longer. Gurman says people familiar with the matter expect new, slimmer, gaming-ready MacBooks complete with a touchscreen strip for function keys and a Touch ID sensor. Sources who asked not to be named say the laptops have been in testing at Apple since earlier this year. Sadly, those same sources also say the new machines are not due to be announced at the iPhone event scheduled on September 7th.
I actually really want them to be announced and released as soon as possible because we need to replace one of our laptops at home. And I keep telling, because my wife's MacBook Air, the trackpad doesn't work anymore. So she has to, everywhere she takes it, she has to bring a Bluetooth mouse, which isn't the end of the world. At least she's able to work around it. But I mean, the thing's like ancient, super slow. So we're biding our time waiting for this. So at least knowing that it's right around the corner, and it has some really cool features like that Touch ID sensor. This will make you happy. It ships with a secure enclave.
Oh,
yeah.
I like the secure enclave.
I know. See, had us at secure enclave. Which basically means that you can have that Touch ID functionality on your laptop to do things like password manager, interactions and other things, which I think would be great on a laptop. I'd love to have that on a laptop.
It's supposed to have powerful and efficient graphics processors that for expert users and for video gamers. I don't know. I am this laptop's 2 years old, and I am completely happy with it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, I'm ready.
No.
Ready for a new one. No.
Nope.
Yeah, I have one that's about the same age, and I'm happy with it, too.
I'm ready for a new iPhone. That will be the 4th iPhone per laptop. So you can see why Apple is pushing the iPhones as opposed to the laptops. It's been 4 years since it's been revamped.
And I think before that, it had been 4 years since the unibody laptop design was announced. So these are devices that you don't upgrade as often. So Apple is not, upgrading them with crazy specs every year at a rate that maybe they were at one point, but they just aren't really doing that now. But I'm happy that it's right around the corner.
Yeah, no, I've had 4 different iPads and 3 different iPhones since I've had this. And
wow. I mean, I'm not throwing stones because I've had a lot of devices too, but it's kind of what we do. It's kind of what we do here. But real quick before we move on, the very same day as the iPhone announcement is expected, which would be September 7th. Sony PlayStation actually just announced that they're having an event on the same day. And they say it's to discuss details on the PlayStation business, but many believe that this is where we're going to actually finally hear about the PlayStation Neo. That's kind of the souped up, but not quite full version upgrade from the PlayStation 4, which is going to have 4K support, more horsepower under the hood. So that could potentially be a big, a day with a couple of really big announcements. So when a secure golden key exists, problems can arise. This has been at the core of the discussion around the idea of creating backdoors into secure systems for access by the feds when it's needed. If it exists, it might see the light of day in unintended ways. And then what? Driving this point home is Microsoft, unfortunately. The key to its secure boot system that protects Windows devices has been leaked by none other than Microsoft, apparently, giving a would-be attacker direct access to protected devices, the ability to bypass secure boot, basically, and make changes under the hood. This includes things like, the ability to run a new OS on the device, or worse yet, running, apps or bootkits, rootkits, that sort of stuff on the device to get in there. Secure boot basically validates all of the components of the system during the boot process. So this is basically a golden key that's attached to a debugging and unlocking policy, which allows people to, in general, use it for testing purposes initially for developers to test certain things. But it allows for things like executing those self-signed binaries that actually, could do damage.
And so was it a design flaw or did they accidentally ship it? I read both. I read that the debug mode policy was accidentally shipped to retail devices.
Yeah, that's what I read. Right.
But I also heard that it was a design flaw. I don't know. So, this is not so good.
Well, it's, I think, and the ZDNet article kind of points this out, and it's a good kind of way to think about it is that, you know, what we've been talking about security for months now. Like this is a good example of the magical key that gives you access to things. It might not always be the greatest thing for that to exist at all, because if it does somewhere at some point, it could be used in an unintended consequence. And here you go, prime example of that. So Microsoft apparently has pushed out, they were notified a couple of months ago. They pushed out a couple of patches, a couple of security patches that have began to kind of patch this together and fix the problem. They still have a little bit more work to do. So apparently there's going to be another update expected for September that should hopefully kind of fix the issue.
So to put it in like high school movie terms, this was like the janitor's master key to all of the rooms, and he gave it away to the worst kid in the class, possibly. Or he left it out, possibly. He either gave it or left it out to the most mischievous kid in the class. He
was at the cafeteria getting lunch. He left it on the counter, and the worst kid in the class was also getting lunch and was like, ooh. Yes, I think John Hughes directed that one.
All right. So. Technology and John Hughes terms. Got it. Well, tech journalist Owen Williams has an op-ed on the Next Web today entitled, "Please Stop Saying Tech Inventions Are Going to Kill Each Other." Williams makes a good argument that our constant desire to search for the next big thing makes us want to assume that it's going to replace the thing that's there now. He says Windows 10 did not kill the Mac, the iPad did not kill the laptop, Instagram is unlikely to kill Snapchat, and Facebook is unlikely to kill Twitter. What do you think, Jason?
I think this article just killed this blank just killed blank article. Truthfully.
What about killer app? Can we say? Do you think we can?
I think that's fine, because I think killer app means something entirely different, right? The killer app means, or the killer solution, or killer app basically means this is an application that exemplifies the reason that you have to have something. I don't know if that necessarily means that this kills something else. You know what I mean? Or makes something else not good. It just means that it makes this really great. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point. No one thing actually kills something else in tech. Things happen over a much longer span of time, and it's not the existence of one social network isn't the sole reason that another social network just stops working, but it sure makes for good headlines.
Right. Well, he says MySpace. You know, MySpace, Facebook didn't kill MySpace. MySpace killed MySpace. It was hard to use. People didn't want to use it anymore. It wasn't another thing that kills it. Maybe, just make good products, and maybe we can have a few of them. Maybe we can have Snapchat and Facebook and be fine. As long as they keep their filters in check.
Yes. As long as they don't kill themselves, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe we should stop talking about killing things.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, after the break, how new tech combined with social media enhances the world of backyard astronomy. But first, let's take a minute to thank Rocket Mortgage, the sponsor of this episode. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. When faced with a choice to interact with a person or a computer, what are you going to choose, Jason? Person or computer?
A robot, because they're half man, half machine.
Good idea. I mean, we'd like to say that we would choose human, but I think for a lot of those tasks, we just want a computer most of the time. We just don't need a person for some things anymore. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage approval process into the 21st century. It's fast, it's powerful, it's completely online. Rocket Mortgage has taken all the complicated, time-consuming parts of applying for a mortgage out of the equation. If you hate searching through stacks of old files and paperwork, you don't have to anymore. With Rocket Mortgage, you can easily share your bank statements and your pay stubs at the touch of a button, helping you get approved in minutes for a custom mortgage solution that's been tailored to your unique financial situation. With Rocket Mortgage, you can do all of this on your phone or your laptop. It's a quick online process that you can manage from the convenience of your couch in your pajamas if you want. So if you're looking to refinance your mortgage or buy a home, check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/TNT. That's quickenloans.com/TNT. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. And we thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans for their support.
So if you've always wanted to be an astronomer, but let's say you didn't major in astrophysics or, actually become one by craft, that doesn't mean you can't make some pretty remarkable discoveries of your own. And joining us to talk all about the discoveries of backyard astronomers everywhere is Elizabeth Howell from Ars Technica. How's it going, Elizabeth?
Excellent. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. It's great to get someone on the show that shares my awesome last name. So thank you for joining us. That's the first reason we brought you on.
Exactly. It was totally deliberate. So
The second reason, and probably the most important reason, is that you wrote an awesome article. And I was reading through the article, and I totally remember, because I'm a Reddit user, I totally remember John McKeon's thread. It was a few months ago where he shared his discovery on Reddit, and it just kind of blew up. What did he capture exactly?
it was an incredible discovery. So essentially, this guy had a telescope, and I'm not talking a big telescope, I'm talking a moderate sized one that you can put into your backyard. He's looking at Jupiter, he's filming it, and he sees something. And what he saw ended up being a big impact. And you can see there the video that they're bringing up, and it's actually pretty obvious. And I must caution that this was done with software to really make it shine like that. But when he was going through the frames later on, he discovered that there was this flash, and the flash was something, a meteor or a comet smashing into the atmosphere of Jupiter.
So before we kind of get into how this was possible and kind of the trend, or I don't know, the passionate amateur kind of crowd of people that are kind of doing this behind the scenes, what makes this such an important discovery specifically?
Well, if you remember back to 1994 or 93, that period, we had this big set of comets, sort of comet fragments that were heading towards Jupiter. It was called Shoemaker-Levy 9, and it crashed into the planet. And at the time, everybody was saying, oh, we're never going to see this again in our lifetime, anything crashing into a giant planet just like this. But the challenge with these big telescopes that the professionals use, and the Hubble Space Telescope, is there are billions of objects to look at, and there's only so much telescope time. And luckily for us, computers have improved a lot since the 90s. Anybody who remembers DOS and how far we've come, or
Yes.
sort of the Mac equivalent, I see we got Macs there, right? You know how far we've come in that time. At the same time, camera technology has improved. And also, because of that, we have a lot more people looking at the sky. These aren't necessarily trained professional astronomers. They haven't necessarily gone to school and studied astrophysics. But these are people who sit out there every night in their backyard with a 6 or 8 inch telescope. They've got computer software, they've got cameras, and they look at things. And because they're not limited by telescope time in the same way a professional astronomer is, that's how come we're seeing more impacts on Jupiter. And we've seen many of them. In the past 5 or 6 years alone, we've seen about half a dozen of them. So we're thinking that now it's more common than we actually thought, that there would be something crashing into Jupiter, or for that matter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. They just happen to be further away and not as big.
So Jason mentioned Reddit. What's the role that social media is playing in all these discoveries?
The other thing that's changed, obviously, is the internet, because back in the 90s, I didn't have it, but some people had it kind of at a primitive dial-up situation, whereas now, of course, we've got high-speed video. This podcast wouldn't have been possible, obviously, in the 90s, unless you were in some sort of expensive, kind of mainframe situation. So now we've got social media where people are sharing videos, they're sharing pictures, and they're saying, look at this, what do you think this actually is? The really cool thing about it is the professional astronomers are taking an interest, and so they follow these forums, and they say, oh, that looks like it might be, in this case, a smack on Jupiter, or maybe this star that was imaged in the sky, maybe it's a supernova. And in some cases, if they're lucky enough, they can get a professional telescope to take a look at it and see what the amateurs are seeing as well. But of course, in the case of an impact, it's very, very momentary. So you can't just swing around a telescope in a few seconds and take a look at it. So then they have to look at the data. And I should mention in the article, too, it was actually 2 independent astronomers, sort of amateur astronomers, that took pictures of Jupiter, just like what you're seeing here, at the same time, and they both saw the flash. And so because there's evidence and it's backed up by somebody else, everybody is pretty sure that there was something happening that night.
Yeah, it's interesting reading through that thread and kind of the threads that it points to as well, because, everybody's talking the same language. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are just recording the skies. It's every night. It's like, I've got a clear sky. I'm going to go in there with my equipment and I'm going to record the sky, because they were all kind of like trading, like, man, I may have something too. What time, at what time, did this happen? Oh, I looked at my, my footage and I stopped an hour prior to that. That's a real big bummer, but they were all kind of talking the same language. And that kind of speaks to, I don't know, kind of just this general democratization of something that used to be so limited and so isolated. What exactly does someone need in order to get started on their own to kind of participate in this kind of stuff?
Well, I would say that there are two approaches you could take. One is actually to go onto these forums. So there's places on Reddit, there's places on Facebook. I have some links in my article actually to point you to those. And what you can do is just scan through and see what other astronomers are doing. But I can tell you that very generally, I'm not a part of this community, but I wrote about it, that you would need something like a 6 or 8 inch telescope. You need probably a decent DSLR type camera. And then there's certain software and what it does. And I don't want to suggest a software because it would depend on your platform, if you're Mac or Linux or Mac or anything else. But what it does is it takes the images and it essentially stacks them in such a way that way you can make something shine out a little bit more prominently. Like, for example, if you think about looking at a gaseous nebula out in space, it's very, very faint if you look at it with the naked eye. But if you take a series of exposures and then you use the computer to stack these exposures together, then you can actually make features shine out more brightly. And you can use the same thing for planets, and that's part of the reason that we were able to see this flash on Jupiter. And here you can see some tips to get involved. So there's a telescope, different kind of camera. I forgot to mention, this is kind of obvious, but a decent computer. So you probably would be wanting something that has a certain amount of space. So another thing you should do too is before you make these buys, because we're talking hundreds, thousands of dollars, depending on how expensive you go, get involved with your local astronomy club. And almost every community has one. They're at museums or they're sort of between people. And just go out there and see what people are using, because astrophotography is such a popular hobby these days that you may just find a buddy in the neighborhood who's able to help you out and point you to the right equipment. And, astronomy is a very, very social community. John, we were already talking about that on the show here, and you're going to find that as soon as you get involved. So I highly, highly recommend that.
So another way to get involved is JunoCam. Can you tell us a little bit about what JunoCam is?
Yes, we just, luckily for us, had a spacecraft arrive on Jupiter on July 4th, a very good day for Americans, obviously. And this spacecraft is going to be there for about 18 months or so, taking pictures of what's happening in the atmosphere. And the cool thing about it is there is a camera on it, JunoCam, as you can see here. And what they are planning to do is ask the amateur astronomy community to recommend things to look at on Jupiter, because we've got the Great Red Spot, obviously, but there also are bands and sort of shifting atmospheric patterns. Sometimes they change in hours, sometimes they change in days. And again, the professionals recognize that the amateurs are looking far more often than the professionals can afford to. So if they see something quickly changing color or a feature rapidly disappearing, they can put this up on the website. And then eventually the community is going to be voting on the features that they feel are the most interesting ones to look at. So here you got a really good shot of these belts kind of changing over time, different parts of the atmosphere. So obviously, if you're looking at it every night, you're going to see these changes more often than if you take, say, Hubble and look at it every 6 months or every year.
And this stuff is fascinating and super empowering. Like, reading your article got me super excited for this, actually. I'm like, man, I realize there's an expense to getting involved in it. But I don't know. I've just always been fascinated with space. But, I think a lot of people, even when they are fascinated with space, it can kind of get a little overwhelming, the thought of getting involved in this kind of stuff. You feel like it's outside of your depth or whatever. But there's a lot of amateurs that are involved, and not only just involved from a voyeuristic standpoint, but also, like you say, sharing their information with professionals. I mean, are we seeing a lot more kind of generation of new ideas and new discoveries as a result of this directly in like the last 10 years?
I would feel that, just speaking anecdotally, of course there is. I don't know if there's been any studies, though, so I have to caution that. But I know that there's a feeling, anyway, that the amateurs and professionals feel like at least they can talk more often.
Right.
It's just a heck of a lot easier now because we've got Skype, we've got Reddit, we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got any number of ways that people can just click on the link on their computer and hook up with a community, which is amazing. And I haven't even gotten into all the mobile technologies. I mean, now you could be sitting outside, you see something cool, you whip out your phone and you're looking at, Snapchat, which NASA's on right now, and you might be sharing something on there. So it's just amazing the number of technological tools, the way that people can get involved. And as I said, because the community is so open anyway, it's just really fun to see this mixing. It's almost like a university community when different departments get together and have all these cool ideas. Same kind of thing with the amateurs and professionals.
For sure. Elizabeth Howell, it's been a pleasure talking with you about this stuff. You're found on Ars Technica. Where do you want people to kind of follow your work or maybe your social networks online?
Well, I'm hoping my name's popped up down there. Yep. So if you look right down there, you can see my social media profile, Twitter. I post all of my articles on there. I'm on a few space websites, but this particular one is on Ars Technica. And what I'm going to do actually is right after I get off the phone, I'll repost that Ars Technica article right at the top so that people can find it. And will the link be on your website too, or what's the deal?
Yeah, we'll be linking to it for sure as well. So
excellent.
Definitely check that out. ElizabethHowell.ca. And find her on Twitter as well. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. This was awesome.
Okay, thank you very much. Take care.
All right,
Thanks.
have a good night. It's actually getting me super excited because in a few weeks we're going camping, and we picked the new moon to go camping to this place called Malakoff Diggins. And I've been there before on a new moon. What's so cool about it, it's like an old mining area. So there, these huge caverns. You can climb out onto the edge of a cavern and lay there on a new moon, and you have nothing blocking your peripheral vision. So literally all you see when you lay there and look up is stars. And because there's no other light, you trick your brain into feeling like you're just floating in space. Like you are literally just hanging out on a rock floating in space. It's the best thing in the world. And I'm super excited for it, if you can't tell.
It's amazing. Makes you realize how small you are.
Exactly that. But it's such a cool realization at the same time.
Well, yesterday we asked you to weigh in on ad blockers. Thanks to everyone who wrote in and tweeted their thoughts. Jeff Levitt writes, I use ad blockers, AdBlock Plus. I whitelist trusted sites unless they have really annoying pop-up ads.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I do have an ad blocker, but I don't have it activated by default. But man, the sites that really kind of get abusive with ads, sometimes I'll throw it on and it just makes me a little happier. Edward Klein wrote, I've resisted for years, but I've recently become a reluctant convert. What finally pushed me over the edge was load time. Sometimes a page would fail to load altogether because the ad server would time out or hang up. Since finally putting an ad blocker on Chrome, I've never had a load delay or error occur. Until the servers that deliver ads are powered by more than hamster wheels, my ad blocker is staying on.
Mr. Gecko writes, I use ad blockers for multiple reasons, none of which is because I don't like ads. One, I don't like seeing nudity in advertisements as I browse the internet. Number two, I don't like seeing women in lingerie. Number three, I don't like full-page advertisements. Number four, I don't like flashing advertisements. And number five, I don't like advertisements that make noise. Number six, I don't like malvertisements.
Okay.
He knows what he likes and doesn't like.
Doesn't like, yes. Ag Quarks tweeted, I use an ad blocker, but if a website asks me nicely to turn it off, aka whitelist it, I generally comply. Yeah, and if it's a site that like you go to all the time that you actually really, really enjoy content, like same deal. Like I'll go there and sometimes it might pop up that thing. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, you're right. Turn it off and lets it through again.
Right. So if they say turn off your ad blocker, you jerk.
Yeah.
You won't.
Oh, yeah. You call me a jerk, and that's staying on for sure.
Neil emailed us to say, I do use ad blockers. Number one, to cut down on malicious content. Number two, pop-ups and popovers are very rude. Number three, better response time. Number four, save on precious data costs.
All right. And Mark from Florida. Mark says he uses ad blockers primarily to avoid malicious ads. Again, malvertisements. We've heard that once before. But also to speed up page loads. My preferred ad blocker is the Unblock Origin extension for Firefox and Chrome. I use the Freedom ad blocker on my iOS devices.
And Robert Collins also uses ad blockers to save data with only 1 gigabyte. That is supposed to somehow last me all month. There's absolutely no room in the data budget for ads at all. Also, since Jason mentioned no paused screenshot looked good, he offered this pause of Jason that he got while watching All About Android, and he challenges you to guess where the show was paused.
I'm pretty sure that's about the time we enter into the arena.
That's a good look, though. I think you should start using that as your profile picture.
That worked out somehow, although I'm kind of frightening myself right now. I'm scared of myself right now. All right, so that's one screenshot that kind of worked out, I suppose. They don't all look like that. So thanks for everyone for sending those in. We had a question of the day. We heard from a lot of you. Not all of them made it in, but excellent feedback. Keep it coming. TNT@twit.tv. All right, coming up, what your preference? Are you a dog person or are you a cat person? That actually tells Facebook something about you, Megan. I'm just saying you. Okay. Yes, and everyone else.
That should be our question of the day tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's hold on to that. But first, let's take a minute to thank ZipRecruiter, the sponsor of this episode. Are you hiring? If you have a business, it's not easy to find good quality candidates. Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? That's the challenge. And if you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites. With ZipRecruiter, you can do that. Posting jobs in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to more than 100 job boards, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. You just post one time, and then you'll see all those candidates are going to start rolling into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. ZipRecruiter offers optimized pages that look great on any screen. You can add their unique mobile apply process for more visitors and more applicants. And no matter where you're looking, you're going to find some candidates, any city, any industry, nationwide. No more juggling emails or calls to your office. Those can get out of hand. You can actually add multiple users to your account to help you manage the entries that you're going to get here. Quickly screen candidates with real-world questions using free-form, multiple choice, or yes/no formats. And you can set that all up to taste. View candidate responses in conjunction with their formatted resumes. You can rate them, hire the right person fast, because that is, after all, what it's all about. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 800,000 businesses. More than 125 million candidate applications have been delivered so far. And right now you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. You just go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT and get it started. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. All right, so we got a voicemail, this doesn't happen very often, about those glasses that let you only see what's going on your smartphone. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Tech News Today, Patrick from Victoria, Texas, and I just wanted to say that as far as the snooping glasses, I think the way it works is exactly like 3D in a movie theater. Basically what they're doing is they are, I believe, it's something along the lines of polarizing the lenses in order to filter out certain forms of light. And it appears white because there's probably a bunch of overlapping light spectrums, and the polarization and the filtering allows you to see through that because you're not getting it. Same way the left eye gets half the resolution cut out, the right eye gets the other half of the resolution cut out. But together they form a cohesive picture. Either that or it's like one of those dinosaur books where you put on the lenses and the splotches of color actually become the dinosaur, because it's filtering out the reds and the noise in the data. It's one of those two. If my guess is correct, that is.
Thank you for your voicemail. Yeah, that's a really good point. And actually, in the chat room, who was it? Was it I just saw it and now it's gone.
JJ48084.
Yeah, it must be. Yes, exactly. There we go. It's JJ, of course. Hey, JJ. That's a really good point, right? Like you're wearing polarized sunglasses, and I hate it when phones do this, where I don't know why they do it or why they don't, but you hold it a certain way and suddenly the screen just doesn't completely disappear, but it like fades to a point to where it's really hard to see it based on the polarized glasses that you're wearing. So it must be something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we want to hear your phone calls. We want to hear your voicemails. We will play them on the show. 260-TNT show is how you get in touch with us by voicemail. So please, and send us also your how I watch, because we want to hear that too.
Yeah.
And now on to Facebook. Every once in a while, Facebook releases some fun research in order to amuse us right out of remembering that they know every single thing about us, and they are going to use all that data to, they're going to use it against us. Let's just face it. But Facebook is still fun. Like this research on what it means if you're a dog person or a cat person. For example, dog people have more friends. Cat people are more likely to be single. Cat people are also more likely to read fantasy, sci-fi, and anime, while dog people prefer love stories, preferably with a dog in them.
Interesting. Not sure about that one. Cat people love Dracula. Dog people love Marley and Me. So
love stories with a dog in them.
Basically, yeah. Basically. Although I've never seen Marley and Me, but is it any good? Because I'm a dog person, so maybe this is a movie I should check out.
I read Marley and Me and did enjoy it. Dog and cat people are equally likely to feel heartbroken.
Okay, that makes sense because being heartbroken is a human experience that everyone shares.
Cat people are more likely to feel tired, while dog people are more likely to be excited.
Yeah, so check that out. That one was interesting, right? Cat people, tired, annoyed, sad, emotional. Dog people, fabulous, blessed, proud, excited. And sure, I cherry picked because there is also happy and loved and in the cat side, and amused.
Mm-hmm. JJ4884 says, what about people who like both equally? There's no such thing. You have to choose.
It's one way or the other. Just pick your battle
like
here.
Dogs and cats can't live together.
Seriously.
No, they can't.
Seriously. I interpreted this as saying that cat people are sinister and dog people are saps. Like a lot of them, when you kind of read through like the movies or the books or the whatever, the cat people a lot of the times had the like darker sense of humor or whatever based on the data, and the dog people like really like romantic comedies and stuff like that. So I don't know what that means.
Well, your dog, like my dog, for example, no matter what I do to it, it always loves me. Like it just looks at me like no one has ever looked at me before. Like it just loves me beyond anything. And so like I'm apparently the kind of person that needs that. Whereas a cat person, like cats ignore you and like you're totally okay with that. You don't need an animal to love you to feel good about yourself. So
yeah, you've got to really work hard to get a cat to respect you.
Right.
And with a dog, they're just like, you feed me food, so I'm happy.
Right. Even if you don't feed me, I still love you.
Exactly. Because someday you will feed me, right? Right?
I do always feed my dog, and I don't
Good.
do anything. No dogs were hurt in this, in me testing whether something would love me unconditionally.
Good. Kara did point out that, in the doc here that what about bird people?
Yes. What about bird?
What do you think?
I think we're not on Facebook.
Oh.
So Facebook doesn't know what we do.
It's true.
I think that's anecdotal evidence because Josh is also a bird person. He posts a lot of pictures of his bird on Facebook.
Well, why didn't they do any research on bird people?
Because
To Mark Zuckerberg about that.
yeah, because the eternal question is dog or cat. Bird is like outlier, I think.
Found this.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So we said question of the day. I'm not sure what the question of the day is, but do you think this is accurate? Do you think it's accurate that Facebook's data crunching around dogs and cats, does this reflect reality? What do you think? Or is it just happenstance, right? Like something, data has to fall somewhere. It might not always necessarily be tied to the fact that they love dogs or cats. So I don't know. Send us your feedback.
Right.
TNT@twit.tv.
I'm going to put up a Twitter
Let us
poll.
know.
Dog person, cat person, bird person. Let's see.
I have a feeling bird person's going to run away with it. Ron Richards from another show that we have on the network that I do with him, All About Android. He's going to be joining us in studio tomorrow. He's in town. He lives in New York now, but he's in town. So he's going to come up and visit, hang out with us, talk some tech, be sitting right here, and maybe we'll move the TV. I'm not quite sure. But that would be the most comfortable thing to do. So we'll see. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show by emailing us. We hope that you do at tnt@twit.tv. You can also leave us a short voicemail like we had today. That was awesome. 260-TNT-SHOW. And you can hit us up on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV.
We want you to subscribe. You can do that at twit.tv/TNT. You can also do that on whatever podcast catcher you use. Find our podcast, subscribe. You can also listen on the Amazon Echo. Just say, Alexa or Echo or whatever you call it, play Tech News Today on TuneIn, and you'll get to listen. So do that. And you can also tweet at me, and you can vote in my poll that I'm about to put up there at Megan Morrone.
And I'm at Jason Howell. No poll for me. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and for Hesse for running the words, and everyone who helps us do this show every single day. And thanks to you for talking tech. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.